Stand clear.
100% Wild Podcast. So for all you listeners,
hello and welcome to
definitely not your favorite outdoor podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Dreary Outdoors 100% Wild Podcast. This is a special fan show, and we've got a special guest. But first, I want to offer you guys a little hunting update here on my season. There it was. And we've got a special guest, Jeremy Cavareta. So Jeremy hopped in, and there's a link in the show notes for every show. You can go in and you can submit an audition to be featured on an episode. And Jeremy, I think you're our fourth fan show. So congratulations.
Nice. Thank you.
So Jeremy, you are dialing in today from upstate New York, right?
Yes, sir.
Where specifically?
Albany, right outside Albany.
Okay. And you've got the deer behind you. They aren't small, man.
Good size for New York. I got a couple from Ohio on wall over there you can't see, and I hunt a lot of public land in Ohio too. But these are all New York right here.
Okay. You know, I hear people talk about mountain bucks in New York and tracking deer. Do you ever do any of that kind of hunting?
Yes, especially late season, like muzzleloader. That's my favorite thing to do. Yeah,
that's something we definitely
once there's snow on the ground.
We need to talk more about, because us Midwestern boys don't know. I mean, we'll track a deer that we shot, but we don't do a whole lot of skulking around after deer. So maybe we'll have to have you on another time to talk about that. But so you have an interesting story. You reached out to us, and you wanted to share kind of your perspectives because you believe that hunting has saved your life. So before we get into how you feel like hunting can save other people's lives, how it saved your life, let's talk about your background a little bit. Now you're a veteran, correct?
Yes, sir. Yep, I'm a combat veteran. I spent 5 years of my career overseas, not even in the United States. So I've been all over the place, and the only time I would come home, I try and get Thanksgiving, because not a lot of people took Thanksgiving. They all take Christmas, New Year's to go home. I take Thanksgiving and get the last few days of bow season, the first few days of gun season. And I would try to do that every year. And I never had to compete with a lot of people to get Thanksgiving off.
Well, thank you for your service. So what specifically did you do in the military?
I was law enforcement, but I did a lot of non-compliant boardings.
What does that mean?
A lot of special details. So if there's merchant ships coming out of coming across the Med, and they would go to Turkey or Syria. Syria had so many nautical miles that the U.S. it was international waters. Even though the whole Med is international waters, Syria has this small section that isn't. And they would bring these boats up, fishing boats, whatever, and go straight there so they don't get boarded. And that's where we're looking for back then, the deck of cards of people, the terrorists. Okay, so we were looking for them. So we get news that a boat or a vessel was heading up that way, and we'd intercept it and board it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're not happy
if there was
about
anybody
it.
No, and if there was anybody on it of value, they would get detained. We take them. They all get zip tied. We put them up on the front of the ship. We find a room for interviewing, another room for after the interviews, and a room for before, because you don't want to contaminate. So once they get interviewed, they go to a room where they weren't interviewed, so they don't talk to everybody. We have interpreters come on, people come on, taking, camera crew, taking pictures, all the passports, taking pictures of them, take all their hard drives, their cell phones. That gets sent off the ship, and the FBI or CIA, whoever was there, would plug devices in and download all the information on it, and then they bring it back, and that's what we did.
So I guess you have to stay tied off to that ship while you're doing a lot of this work, because what happened if these people are not persons of interest? I guess you got to release them back onto the boat.
Right. So what we do is we come up an 11-meter rib boat, I don't know if you ever seen Swick has them. It's that green boat with the flotations on it. They're jet powered. So we drive up on the side of the ship with that. We have a big telescoping pole and a caving ladder, which is that wire ladder, and it hooks over the lifeline of that ship. I climb up it. I take tie down straps, tie that hook down, the pelican hook, so it don't pop off.
Okay.
And then the team will come up, and I'd be the first one up there, and I'm holding cover, and then the next guy, and then once we get up there, we already have our orders where we're going to go. The boarding officer's the last one on. He tells us what to do, and then we go. And then we'd have to climb back down that ladder, get back in the ship, on the boat.
Sorry, I'm digging deep on this just because I'm fascinated. Was there ever any resistance to you guys boarding? Did you have to dodge any bullets trying to get up?
Never had to dodge bullets, but inside there, we'll be going into their berthing living areas, and there have been situations where they're resistant.
Yeah, I can't imagine they're real happy about you being there, especially if they got something to hide.
Yeah, and then my last 2 years, I was in Guantanamo Bay. Wow. I was on the extraction team, and I was there with all the high-profile terrorists from the USS Cole to 9/11, and had to deal with them for a couple of years.
Unreal. It's crazy because that era is passing away. Like, I think I was in my 20s when. Well, yeah, 20s when a lot of the stuff in the Middle East started happening. We started bringing people over, and there was a lot of concern about how nice things were at Guantanamo Bay for prisoners and how we were taking care of them and everything. And there's this current generation, they may only hear about Guantanamo Bay in history books, and even then they may not even understand what that whole thing was about. Right.
They did, National Geographic came over, did a special. I went over. I was one of the security guys to help escort them, and they came on to our camp that we're at, which is the real high risk camp with all the top profile guys. They came on there and they're walking around their cameras, and they're very liberal at first because they were Obama's team. That's right when Obama got elected.
So he was going to shut it down,
and he was going to. That was one of his big things to shut down Guantanamo Bay, and he never came. He set a team. And they came, and at first they were, like I said, real liberal. And at the time they came, they were for like 40 days so far. They were covering themselves head to toe in their feces and wiping it on the wall, and they got to see that, and their thoughts changed when they left. I could tell. They're like, I remember the mask talking to me in the hall, like, this happened all the time. I'm like, every day for the last 40 days,
Yeah.
So they got to see, and that's probably why it never closed. They realized it, because where are these people going to go? That's the problem. Mm-hmm. So we can't send them to their country. Their country are executing them, right? So now we can't do that. So what countries are going to take them? So that was the problem. Why there was this loophole with them. Where are they going to go? Mm-hmm. Their country don't want them, or they say send them, we'll execute them. So they have to figure out where they're going to go. And you had to find countries. There were a bunch of countries that, believe it or not, were taking them. And the United States was going to be one of them. They were going to take a bunch of the Uyghur community, and that got stopped. But they were on their way to come here.
Unreal. So, so tell me about this past season. How was that for you?
It was good. It was good. I was real busy this year. I went to Ohio to actually a kid I was in the military with. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen him since 2000, I think it was like 2003. Last time I physically saw him other than social media. And I went down there and hunted with him for a few days. Okay. A lot of big bucks. They were coming just at dark.
Yeah.
And there were some big ones. So it was, I wasn't shooting anything unless it was a giant there. Sure. And then I left there. I went to Pennsylvania. My buddies were on a hunt there with Steve Shirk. You ever hear Shirk? Mm-hmm. So I was with him. I hunted 3 days there. I passed some bucks. Nothing I wanted to shoot. Yeah. I could have shot deer. Same thing. The weather was really warm, and I came back to New York and I ended up killing one of the nice big 8-pointers. He dressed out around 195. Good size deer. 120s, 125. I mean, that's decent for around here. They really don't get.
It's funny. I mean, you led with the weight, and that's a New England thing. Like, The weight is so
Yeah.
important. One of our DeerCast writers, Erin Merrill, it's funny. Whenever she kills something, I always ask how much it weighed because people here in the Midwest rarely care about, unless it's just a tank of a deer.
Right.
It's usually, they're talking antler scores. So you've lived a life, buddy. And
Thank you. Yes.
and you've seen some highs and you've seen some lows. Why don't you take us through some of the tougher stuff that you've endured, and then maybe make the connection that bow hunting has had through that?
Okay. So 2017 season, I take off 2 weeks for hunting, and so my schedule is I wake up in the morning. I wake up around 3:30. I'm at the gym at 5. Get out the gym, leave the gym, go right to work all day. Get out of work, pick up my kids, coach softball, soccer, jiu-jitsu, boxing, whatever I'm coaching. Then come home, do whatever I got to do, help with homework, showers. By the time I go to bed, it's like 11 o'clock at night.
Ugh.
I'm waking up at 3:30, 4 o'clock again the next day. So I'm always on the go. And I take off for hunting season 2017.
Okay.
I'm in my tree stand. It was the second day I was sitting in my stand, and I felt this like a palpitation. I thought it was a muscle spasm. So I'm like, what was that? Was that my muscle? Because I'm still working out all the time.
You're 45 now, so
yes. So this was So it was 2017. Yeah. So I was just going to be 40.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So I feel this vibration, this little every once in a while. And that was the first day. And then the second day I felt it again. And I came home and I told my wife, I said, I'm feeling this thing. I don't know if it's my heart. I don't know what it is. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I don't know what it is, but I feel fine. Like I'm not winded. I mean, I get EKGs every year, physical fitness tests, blood work, pass everything. Everything's great. So she asked me, she said, are you going to go hunting on like Thursday or something it was? Because she knew it was going to be raining. I said, well, if it's not raining too bad.
Yeah.
I got up at like 3 o'clock, 3:30. I looked, it was pouring. So I went back into bed. She says, you're not going hunting? I said, no. She goes, good, you got a doctor's appointment.
Oh,
so
she set it up for you?
It's not right. So I go to the doctor's. She does the EKG. She's a PA. And she comes in. She says, have you had a heart attack? I'm like, no, I never had a heart attack. She's like, you sure? I go, I'm positive. She goes, well, I'm not an expert at reading EKGs, but this looks like there was something. She goes, so I'm going to send you to a specialist tomorrow that reads EKGs, cardiologist. Go to him. He says, what brings you here? Tell him the whole story, what I'm feeling. I said, I got EKG. She asked me if I had a heart attack, and that's why I'm here. He goes, this EKG? And I look, and I go, yeah. He goes, it's perfect. I was like, huh. He listens to my heart. He says, sounds like you got a murmur. Around 40 years old, that's very common. So he called another doctor.
A murmur is where your valve doesn't close all the way, right?
It's a murmur. It's like, it's where your valve's worn out, and it's blood. Every time it pumps, a little bit of blood comes out. So another female doctor came, and she's got good ears. She said, listen, she goes, hey, it sounds like a murmur. And I was just like, huh. I said, can I get a stress test? And he goes, well, what do you do? I said, well, I was military for a long time. Now I'm law enforcement and everything. He goes, okay, yeah, we'll set you up one. So as I'm waiting for that so it was like a week after. Okay. So that week I go hunting, end up shooting this big deer over here, right there.
And your heart was
I shot that. Had no idea. Yeah, I had no idea that I was knocking on death's door. So I shoot that deer. I rattle him in, shot him, went in, got a buddy. We tracked him, and it's actually the picture I sent you. Okay. So we go down there. I find him dead, and he dressed out at 209. He was heavy, and he was in this ditch. And I was able to get a full wheeler all the way down there, but I had to drag him like 75 yards probably. And here I am dragging this deer out of this ditch, Yeah. And then a few days later, I go have the ultrasound, the stress test. So the first thing they do is they lay you down and do an ultrasound, check all your arteries, make sure there's no aneurysms.
Okay.
because they would put people on a treadmill years ago and they would die on it because it would burst.
It's counterproductive.
So now they check first. So I'm laying there and they're checking and she kept taking pictures, and she went and got the doctor, and he came in and he's looking and he's going, take a picture here, take a picture there. And then he kept saying, is it like bicuspid, not bicuspid? I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I don't know what that is, but it doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
Because they're taking so long. Then I hear him say, cancel the treadmill. And when he said that, I was like, oh. So I sit up and he puts his hand on my shoulder. He says, son, you got the biggest aneurysm I've ever seen. I have no idea how you're alive right now.
What?
He goes, can you sleep downstairs? Is there, all this stuff? Because tomorrow morning you got to go get the dye where they do a catheterization and they put the dye through your body, because that's the only way to actually know how big it is.
Okay.
I said, yeah. He goes, don't get your blood pressure. Go home, stay on the couch, wake up in the morning, come here.
And you've got kids.
He goes, we operate. Yeah. I got 2 kids.
Ugh. That's like living with a ticking time bomb in your chest.
Yeah. And they operate at like 3. Mine was like an 8. So it's crazy big. So I go the next morning, they do the dye, and from there, right up to a room. And the next day I was having open heart surgery. So I had a aneurysm in my ascending aortic artery that comes off the top of your heart. That's the one that goes right to your brain, where if that bursts, you're dead before you hit the ground. Ugh. And if it was a little higher, they said, I would have been dead somewhere, either the gym or in the woods, because you don't know when you have an aneurysm. But that was so close to the top of my heart that as the artery got bigger, it opened my heart and wore my valve out. Jeez. And that's what I was feeling. So I have a mechanical valve. Not only did they replace the aneurysm, they cut it and put a sleeve. It wore my valve out. So I have a mechanical valve. I have to take blood thinners every day in order to live.
Did they tell you how long they think that you were living like that?
They don't know. They don't know. It could have been forever. It could have been a couple years. They don't know if it's stress. They really don't know what causes it.
Okay.
And when I was in there, I had some doctor come in, and he's talking to me about what do I do for a career and what I do for activities. And this guy said, you're never going to be able to do any of that again. Rethink your job. You're not going to be able to compete in martial arts anymore. You're not going to wrestle anymore, all this stuff. And then after I had my surgery, I know I was done. I talked to another surgeon. He said, if you recover good, you'll be able to do just about everything. So I had surgery. So I went back to work 3 months later. Like, they cut me all the way open, spread everything. It was bad. 3 months later, I was back to work and back in the gym. In another 2 months, when I first got to the gym, I couldn't do one push-up. Couldn't do one. I had to do them off my knees.
Well, I mean, how much
within a month
was there from them cracking your sternum open like that?
Oh yeah, I still got wires. I could still feel wires inside. So they just like how you get a deer. It was the same thing. You rip the sternum up, and they have this thing that goes, because my collarbones hurt for a long time, because they spread this so open, it almost pops your collarbones out because your chest is just wide, and then they put this wire in between each rib to hold it in place together. So then it heals. And then, so I go back to the gym, and after about a month, I couldn't do a push-up. I was putting up 80-pound dumbbells. Fast forward 1 year, I compete in the North American the Naga tournament, jiu-jitsu tournament here, and a medal in 2 different divisions. I even went up to 250-plus pound division and took second in that. So these people told me I couldn't do anything. So I was like, I'm going to prove them all wrong.
You said the wrong thing.
Right.
So where does that drive come from? What caused you? Because I think a lot of people would have been like, well, okay, I guess I've got to have a new lifestyle now, more sedentary, more laid back.
I've always been like that. If everybody's going to jump off this bridge, I'm going to stop and be like, well, why are they all going there? Why aren't they going this way? You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's how I've been all through life, all through sports. In the military, that's why I advanced a lot going up through the ranks in the military in my current job, with that mentality of always trying to outwork the next person.
Sure. And
I just know that hard work, just like hunting, the more work you put in, the more success you're going to have. And that's everything in life.
Yeah.
from everything I've ever done.
So talk to us about the bow hunting aspect then, how that all plays in.
Okay, so prior to the surgery, I got out in 2009. I had some PTSD, and I was pretty messed up. And I grew up hunting since I was 5 years old, shooting a bow around that age.
Mm-hmm.
Walking in the woods with my father, and I grew up in an archery shop. And shooting was something I always loved. And while I was in the military, I didn't do a lot of it. I would come home on leave, shoot a few arrows, and then go out hunting.
Sure.
Now I'm out 2009. I said, I want to start shooting again. And it was just something about when I'm shooting that arrow, what it just does something to my mind. All this crazy stuff going on, all the PTSD and all the craziness, that focus that I would have, even if it was for 5 minutes, that was 5 minutes of nothing bothered me. Yeah. You know what I mean? I wasn't thinking about work or jobs or bills or my health or anything. Just thinking about that focus, and it just put me in a good place. And I did that every year. And then now I have this heart surgery. But so now I have PTSD. Now I got the stress from this. 2 little girls. It messed me up again, right?
Yeah.
Started shooting the bow again. And I would do it every day. Come home from work. I go to the gym. I come back. If there's 10 minutes of light left, I'm shooting off my deck. And it would just do something, and I shared it, and I worked at a local archery shop, and I did a lot of lessons with people and get a lot of people involved in hunting. Now fast forward to 2021. Lost my dad. Sorry. But it was tough. He was my best friend, just like you guys, just like the juries. My father we're in the woods together, me, him, my brother, all the time. That's all we thought about. That was our pastime, I never did a drug, don't really go to bars, barely drink. Hunting was the thing, that's what kept me in line, I guess.
Your way of life, yeah.
Right. So now my dad's gone, shooting a bow again. I remember after he died, February 2021, and that spring I picked up the bow. Everything's fine. I go to shoot and I just break down in my backyard. And that year, I rattled in a big buck, and I remember he come in and out, kept coming, walking this trail, looking down at me, and he was leaving. And I remember just no lie. I go, come on, Dad, send that buck to me. And I'm not kidding you. That deer turned across his legs, come right down to me, and I shot him at 35 yards, and he died 10 feet from my tree and all I shoot is Rage Extremes. and he died right there. And I was just like, it's crazy. That I didn't get that deer back. That's a big one. He's getting mounted.
Okay.
And then now fast forward 2022, February, it was 5 days before my father died, my little brother dies. And it was just as bad. And
was your little brother? What was your brother's name?
Justin.
Was he an outdoorsman too?
Yep. I was there when he killed his first turkey, his first deer. I was, his big brother. And me and my father, we killed, hunting every year. Turkey, rabbits, pheasant, deer, bear, everything, And now it's just me. And it was tough. So back to shooting my bow. I'm telling you, it's something about it. And I wish there was, that's one of the questions I have for you guys. I really want to help people. It helped me. Yeah. I really don't know where I'd be if it wasn't for that. If it wasn't for hunting, if it wasn't for bow, how much can somebody take? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Some people classify archery, hunting in general, as a hobby or recreation. And we lose sight of within the word recreation, it literally means to be recreated, to be made new. And I even after an unsuccessful hunt, I still feel like I'm coming out of the woods a different and better man than I went in. You learn something,
Yes.
you get more in touch with the creator. You see things in nature that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. And even just the sheer focus and the therapy that comes from shooting a bow and that process and the magic of it. There's something very therapeutic about that process, I think.
It is. I love it so much that I don't understand how everybody don't do it. That's how much I like it. But really, I sit there and I'm hunting and the joys of it and the adrenaline rushes and the highs and lows. Like, I don't understand how everybody don't do it. To me, it's the best thing, other than my family and friends and God and country. I love it. Yeah. Like, I love it. It's my life. It's what kind of defines me. Well, and that's why I feel I wish I want to help people, especially through archery, because let me tell you, that's the best non-medicated way that I dealt. Some people will go to drugs. Some people will go to alcohol, you name it. And it was archery, hunting, and going to the gym. If it wasn't for that stuff, I honestly, I don't know if I'd be here right now.
The stories you hear of people who are dealing with chronic physical pain or chronic emotional pain, PTSD, deep trauma, that end up getting hooked on whatever medication they're prescribed, not intentionally. No one, I don't think very many people actually intend to get hooked on those, but some of those are very powerful opioids and very powerful drugs that just have an addictive component to them. And, all of a sudden they find themselves living a completely different life than what they intended. And so you've done something that I think is noteworthy, in that you found the things that are important that transcend everyday life and clung to those things as opposed to a pharmaceutical.
Yes. And I just believe I've been put on this earth to help people. I mean, you just look at my career choices. They all kind of fell in my lap, something that I landed into, and it's always helping people. I love my job. If I could do my job that I do for free and able to survive, I'd do it, because that's how much I love helping people. And now my new thing is I help a lot of people through archery.
So what would you say to someone that's going through a really difficult time? Because a lot of us that are deer hunters did that because of a dad that took the time and took us out, or an uncle, or a brother or sister, someone in our family, someone that we're very close to, and ultimately the nature of life is we lose people. How would you counsel them to get through difficult circumstances in life as a hunter?
What I did is I realized that it could always be worse. There's always somebody that has it worse. Yeah. And nobody's going to change it for you. You have to be willing to help yourself, love yourself, and find something that helps you, that puts you in a good place. It could be reading a book. It could be jogging, walking. For me, it's archery. And if you're a bow hunter, I mean, you could really help self-medicate yourself through the bow and arrow. It's a huge thing. And on top of that, it's exercise. Everybody needs exercise. I don't care who you are. Everybody needs it. Yeah. It's the same thing. It's therapeutic. And all the stuff I do, I work out all the time. You work out. There's people that die, I hear bodybuilders die at 30 years. Yeah. I get that. It's a gamble. But if all this hard work gets me one day extra with my kids, one day, it's worth it.
Yep.
100%. If all these years of suffering gets me one more day, that's the mentality I have. You just got to be positive. You just got to be positive. All the hate out there, all the hate on social media. Yeah. I don't know why everybody hates on each other, what bows they shoot, what camo they use, especially you guys. I hear it all the time. Them pro, they don't know how to hunt. If they came over here, if they hunted public land, that's crap. It's crap. Because I know for a fact the Drurys and Lee and Tiffany and all them started on public land and little sections of woods by their house, and they killed deer. I just hate when I hear them just bashing people for no reason. And remember you'll never meet somebody that's bashing you doing better than you.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
Well, Jeremy, you and I are in the same unfortunate club, having lost our dads, and my dad passed March 16th of 2017. It was actually the same day that Mark and Terry's dad, Ralph, passed away.
I'm sorry about that.
I actually texted Mark that day because my dad, his birthday was in February. He didn't really need anything. He was a huge hunter and everything, but he loved Drury Outdoors. And I texted Mark. I was like, hey, for his birthday, I was like, my dad doesn't need anything, but he would love to get to talk with you. And this is before I was working full time at Drury Outdoors. Mark's like, yeah, I'll call him around 10 o'clock on his birthday. And he did. My dad was just over the moon. So my dad and Mark kind of had a connection there. And then, so when Dad passed, I texted Mark, just said, hey, thank you once more. We lost Dad today. And Mark's like, wow, Tim, my dad passed away today also. And and as an outdoorsman, it hits you differently, because I remember that spring that I killed a turkey, and I was with my buddy Chance at Devil's Backbone, and the first thing I wanted to do was call him and tell him, like, hey, guess what? Send them pictures, and they're not there to do that, and it's just it's really tough. In fact, I wrote a piece called "The Tall Oaks in My Dreams" over at thethinkingwoodsman.com about going back to a cow pasture where I grew up squirrel hunting. That's my foray into hunting, was my dad taking me squirrel hunting when I was a kid. And I got to go back there in 2019, I think, and hunt squirrels. And it was a full circle kind of experience. But for those of us who love the outdoors, and who our context for that is doing it with our loved ones and good buddies, and then they're gone, it just takes on a totally different level of significance.
It does. Yeah. It does. I still, to this day, want to pick up my phone and call my dad. Something big happens, something exciting,
doesn't
or
go away.
I got a new piece of land. I literally pick it up and have to stop and be like, then it was my brother. Now it's the same thing. Now I got two people I can't call.
Yeah.
So it's real stressful, and I still catch myself, like, because you're excited in the moment, you forget about these things.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Same.
oh, that's right.
Same.
It really sucks.
And it really does remind you on an ongoing basis to make the time for your daughters, make the time for the people who are important to you, because you really don't know if you have another season or if they'll have another season. So just put off the busy stuff and do what's important.
Yeah. This last spring, my she just turned 11, but she was 10. You can't hunt in New York till you're 12. So I made, Jeremy Flynn?
No.
He's with Hunter Podcast. Actually, I think Mark was on the podcast this year. I think he was on their podcast. They're from Pennsylvania. And I heard him, went to the ATA show last year, met him. And then he just bought a farm in Ohio that year, and he hasn't even hunted it. And he says, why don't you take your daughter there? Because I told her, nice. She's not old enough to hunt New York. I'm like, okay. I brought her there, and she shot a huge tom with that new 410, that 410 turkey gun. It was the best. I broke down like a little girl in the woods when she shot it, but it was amazing. And she had my little brother's knife. She had his backpack.
Cool.
She had some of my brother's gear, so it was cool. It was really cool.
Jeremy, if folks are maybe struggling and want to reach out to you to gain some perspective, what's the best way for people to do that?
I'd say my email, jeremy.cavareta@yahoo.
Okay. I'll make sure to put that in the show notes if folks want to get a hold of you. Yeah, definitely. Cool. Man, well, I can't thank you enough for your service, for your continued service, for listening to the show. We kind of feel like we have a merry band of misfits that listen and watch on a regular basis, and it's fun to get to visit with you guys like this and put some faces to the people who are out there consuming the content.
Yeah.
Cool.
I really appreciate it. Such a great opportunity. It's like a you guys. I want to say it was like 89 or 90. They came out with one of the first VHSs. I want to say it was like King of Spring or something like that. And I watched that tape over and over. And then they came out with Mad Turkey Calls. And believe it or not, they were sold at our local grocery store.
Oh, sure.
So that's where I got the tape and the calls, and that's what was my big turkey hunting, got me in it so much, was through them tapes. And then I got boxes of Jury Outdoors VHS tapes, boxes of them.
Collectors
and DVDs.
Yeah.
But yep.
Incredible. Well, that's
what started. Been a huge fan.
That's what started it all, and we, we plan on continuing to be a positive influence in the hunting community, help hunters do what they do best and do it better. So that's a big part of what DeerCast is, and so we're glad to have you along for the ride, buddy.
I use it all the time.
Cool.
I love it.
Cool. Glad to hear. All right, Jeremy, thanks for hopping on. I really appreciate your time, man. And if folks want to reach out, I'll include your email in the show notes. And then if you are interested in joining the podcast and being featured, go to the show notes and click the audition link and leave us a quick 30-second video explaining why you think you should be on the podcast. Okay, everybody. Well, thanks for tuning in. Matt will be in on the next episode. I should have mentioned at the top of the show that his daughter is sick today, so that's why he's not in, but he'll be on the next episode, no doubt. Okay, everyone, take it easy.
DeerCast is now supercharged with maps. Get ahead of your game with killer new features like live Doppler radar, wind check out to 5 days, virtual rain gauges, GPS path tracking, and more. Plus, get our 14-day revolutionary DeerCast prediction and access to DeerCast Track. Prep, predict, and pursue with DeerCast.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV was brought to you by Leupold.